These two arrived in the post yesterday. It's probably the least excited I've ever been for any camera related delivery in my life. I did think the other day, if I ever upgrade to a camera like the Sony FS7 or the FX9, I've already got a few of these in the bag, so every cloud and all that. So let's say you just got into photography, you want to buy a new lens, you're looking online, you're seeing all these lenses and you're not quite sure what they mean. For some people, all you might see on that listing is just a random combination of letters and numbers that mean absolutely nothing to you. And that is absolutely fine. That's what this video is for. This is going to be the first video in a series of videos that I'm wanting to roll out that is dedicated to cameras and how they work and operate. So for any filmmakers or photographers who might be new to this as a hobby, this series of videos will be perfect for you. I'm going to go through everything, what all of this means, and hopefully by the end of the video, you'll be able to make your own decision on which lens is right for you. Intro in 3, 2, 1. I've lost one. 1 minute. Got it. Over time, I've owned a variety of lenses ranging from Sigma to Panasonic, Olympus, Canon, and even the standard kit lens for if ever need it. I don't really use that. I'm now at a stage where I can look online and read a lens and understand what they mean. However, I remember starting out in photography and I did not have a Scooby-Doo what the lenses meant. And what we're going to do is go through all the measurements and the numbers that you see on the side of a lens or what you see when you're viewing them online. Let's pop these to the side for now. I'll tell you something, could that replace the lamp? Woo! We'll go with that. So using this little beauty as the example, not the camera, just the lens. When I search for this online, you will see the following. Panasonic Lumix S24-105mm f/4 macro O.I.S lens. The first bit, Panasonic Lumix, that is of course the manufacturer. Lumix is a range of both cameras and lenses that Panasonic produce, and also S is the line of lenses that this lens falls within from that manufacturer. This might not always be at the beginning of the lens description, it might be at the end, so such as Canon, you'll see the letter L for their premium line of lenses. I'll go through that a little later, but typically at the beginning is the manufacturer of the lens. Now when we come to the numbers, 24-105mm, this refers to something we call as focal length. Focal length in its simplest form is how wide or how zoomed in your lens can shoot an image. It is measured in millimeters because that is the distance between the sensor and the area within the lens that produces the sharp image where rays of light become parallel. I know. Rewind. The bigger the number or numbers that you see here, the higher the magnification or zoom. And therefore, the lower the number, the wider your field of view will be. If you're currently eyeing up a lens that just has one number, this is what's known as a prime lens. I won't go into too much detail about prime lenses at this moment in time. However, what I will do is create a video comparing prime lenses to zoom lenses in a different video. So if you want to watch that, make sure you click subscribe. Now, typically on the range, any number up to 43mm is often regarded as a wide field of view, so a wide focal length. So anywhere from 16 maybe up to 43 is a wide field of view. That means you can see a lot more in the image. Anything between 43mm and 70mm is often regarded as a standard field of view. And anything beyond 70 is what's known as telephoto. So you might see something like 70-200, which is known as a 70 to 200mm lens. That means you can take real close-up shots that's good for wildlife or sports or anything like that, whereas the wider lens at the opposite end might be good for landscapes. So if you hear those three terms, wide, standard and telephoto, pop up in a conversation, you'll now know what they mean. This lens has a focal length starting at 24 up to 105, so this covers a large range. I can start at 24mm and then zoom into 105mm for close-ups. Side note, it is important to realise that your camera plays a massive part in focal length, and that depends on your camera's sensor, especially the crop factor that your sensor produces. Again, this is a complex thing to understand if you're new to photography, and so for this video I'm only going to use full frame field of view equivalents, so we don't need to factor any crop factor in with the numbers that I'll be reading out. We've now got that bit sorted, we know what those numbers mean, so it could be a focal view with a range, or it could be a prime, a fixed number. Next on the row, we see here f/4. We're now looking at the maximum aperture that lens can produce. And this is the amount of light that your lens allows your sensor to be exposed to. If you've seen my previous video with the Lumix S1, you may have seen me quickly gloss over Aperture and how I use that in conjunction with other exposure settings such as ISO. I'll leave that in a link in the top. Oh, hang on. I've got a monitor above the camera that's flipped. So it's telling me I need to go this side. However, I think it's that side because that's pointing. I'll leave a link in the corner if you want to watch that video. You can actually see the blades inside the lens opening or closing depending on what aperture you're setting it to. Just like focal length, Aperture also has a range, typically ranging from something like f over 1.4 all the way down to f/22. Here is where it can also get a little bit complicated. Cheaper zoom lenses tend to have something known as a variable maximum aperture, and so you might come across a lens that says f2.8-4.0 or f3.5-5.6. If we place this alongside our focal length chart, the widest and the brightest that your lens can achieve is 24mm at something like f over 2.8. However, as you zoom in, your maximum aperture will drop up to f4 or f over 4. Quick tip, if you're shooting photography, this isn't much of an issue. However, if you're shooting video, I'd recommend you getting a fixed maximum aperture, such as f2.8. As you zoom in during a recording or a take, your exposure won't change, it won't decrease. It'll stay the same as you zoom in or out. So far we have a 24 to 105mm f4 lens. Next up on this lens description is the phrase macro. Not all lenses will have this, but if it does have it, great. The macro mode on a lens allows you to focus extremely close up to the subject. Typically, it doesn't tell you the minimum focus distance on the lens description. However, if you look on your lens, it will tell you somewhere. This one says 0.3 meters or the equivalent, which is 0.98 feet. If you can't find it either on the lens description online or with all the measurements on the lens, it may sometimes appear around the focus ring on the lens. It's also worth noting that a chunky lens like a 70 to 200mm lens will rarely have a minimum focus distance this close. OIS is next on this lens description, and this stands for Optical Image Stabilization. This does exactly what it says on the tin. It optically stabilizes the image. Other lens manufacturers like Canon have their own name, which is IS, image stabilization. Nikon has VR, which stands for vibration reduction. They might differ in quality a little bit, however, at the end of the day, they all perform the same function. Now for the 24 to 105, that's it on the lens description for this particular webpage. However, some lenses have additional information on their specs or even on the lens itself. So we'll go through those really quickly, just so the chances of us missing anything in this video are slimmer. You may find somewhere on the lens or the description the letter I appearing, maybe once, twice or 3 times. This is purely the version of that particular lens. So one eye would be the first version, Mark 1. If you see 2 eyes, it would be Mark 2, 3 eyes, the 3rd version, etc. These are purely when the lens manufacturers like Canon or Panasonic or Nikon have chosen to upgrade their lens. These lenses will typically have the same focal reach, however, inside they might have improvements such as optical quality, so there might be sharper images, or they may have introduced image stabilization to the lens. Be careful when shopping around for these lenses because the price difference between, say, a Mark II and a Mark III might be quite significant, so make sure that you're looking at the right lens depending on which one you'd like. You may also see the lens mount on the description, and this is by far the most important part of a lens description that you need to get right when choosing the right lens. Purchase the lens with the right mount to match the lens mount of your camera. And by mount, I don't necessarily mean the make of the camera. For example, Canon have their well-known EF mount for their DSLR range. However, now they've introduced mirrorless cameras, they've got a new mount called RF. Panasonic have MFT for their Micro Four Thirds cameras, whereas now they've introduced full frame cameras to their lineup. Their full frame camera, like the S1, is an L mount. So when you're looking for these lenses, make sure you choose the right mount for the camera that you're intending to shoot it with. Third-party lens manufacturers such as Sigma, Tamron, Tokina, they might release the same lens but for different mounts. Occasionally you may see letters such as USM, STM or HSM, depending on the type of lens that you're buying. This is the motor that the lens uses to perform its focusing ability. On the lens itself, specifically on the front of the lens, you may see a circle with a diagonal line going through it and then a number. This lens says the number 77 after that little icon. That means that the front end of this lens has a 77mm diameter. So on the end of this, I can attach ND filters, UV filters, but making sure that they are 77mm in diameter as well, so they'll attach perfectly to the front of the lens. One last one, and I did mention it a little bit earlier, is the line that the lens positions itself within underneath the manufacturer. For example, the Panasonic I've been using in this video is an S series lens. That isn't the mount of the camera, it's the line of the lens that it's within. They're known to be optically very good. It's the same with Canon's L series glass as well. They're known to be better than their standard lenses that you'll see, and therefore they'll be more expensive. Getting used to the jargon that comes with photography and videography can take some getting used to, but I'm now confident that if you go and do your own research on lenses, you'll now have a better understanding of what those lenses mean, what they do, and what their limitations are. If so, and you'd like to start knowing more about photography, then please, like I said earlier, subscribe to this channel, because I will be releasing more videos like this, but focusing on different areas of photography throughout the summer and the rest of the year, maybe even to next year if it goes well. So as always, take care, and I'll see you very soon.